Welcome to part 2 of A Better Way to Budget. In our first video, we talked about the importance of budgeting, that it's really the fuel for your financial plan. And I want to remind you that a budget is not meant to constrain you, it's meant to liberate your dollars for the things that matter most. And so always keep in mind the reason why you're doing this work, to track your expenses, to look at this and be intentional, is because you work hard for your money, you want it working hard for you. And by following a few simple steps, you can build this really important skill that will then help you to use your money more efficiently, which ultimately leads to you having a better chance of reaching your goals. Budgeting is something that, unlike the stock market or tax law or other things in your financial plan, is fully under your control. And that's why it's so important. And so I talked about this easy budgeting progression in the first video. You start with spending analysis, facing the numbers, seeing where your money's going by using software to look back at what you've spent and to reveal areas for improvement. After you've seen the numbers, that allows you to fall into the second step, which is zero-based budgeting, where you create a plan for every dollar in advance so that your income minus your expenses and your savings equals zero. You give every dollar a name. This ultimately frees up money for your goals through intentional planning. And then in a reverse budget, we automate the great decisions and the low-hanging fruit that you eliminated from your budget through the zero-based budgeting process. And so we'll automate savings, we'll spend the remainder guilt-free. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a demo of financial planning software to actually show you how you can do the first two of those steps, how you can build a way to do spending analysis, and you can consistently look back at your spending very easily, and then set your zero-based budget to know how much you should be spending each month and keep track of it on an ongoing basis. Now, I'm going to use RightCapital, which is what my clients use for their comprehensive financial plans. Some of my clients have used Mint for years. It's another great budgeting software. Same with QuickBooks or Personal Capital. There are many different tools you can use. All of the things that I talk about today of how to use the software, they might be slightly different in the user interface that you use, but you can use them in those other softwares. Why I love using the budgeting tool in RightCapital for clients is because it's just one of many tools. And so it is built into a financial plan where we can also see their balance sheet, their retirement, tax planning. All of it is part of a broader financial plan, which is really where budgeting fits into your finances. So let's jump right into RightCapital, and I'm going to walk you through an example budget, how you can do spending analysis and then set that budget for yourself. So the first thing you notice here is it's pulling in expenses, and ultimately will build up to 18 months or 2 years of spending data. And that's super interesting because you can see trends, times of year where you might spend less or more. This is probably a really expensive trip that we took. But as you look back, you can see the spending across the different months. Now, when you first link your financial accounts, it's only going to pull the last 90 days of transaction data. And that's fine because realistically, you're not going to go back and recategorize things from the last year of your spending. It makes sense to start with just the last month, to look back at the prior month, make sure that that is accurate. And then if you can do that each month going forward, what you're going to end up with is a really clean budget that shows you exactly what you've been spending, and that allows you to be mindful and set a realistic budget going forward. And so you can filter within RightCapital. You can see your income as it's coming in. You can see all of your expenses, and you can filter by categories to see them. And where all of this information is coming from is not from you putting it into the software. It's actually because I've linked my financial accounts to the platform, and those transactions are automatically coming in. So this would be really labor intensive otherwise, but because I've linked my Wells Fargo bank accounts, our Chase credit cards, our Wells Fargo credit card, both my spending and my wife Jordan's spending is all coming in, and each day with those transactions, the description comes in. There's a advanced rules engine that sets the category based on what those transactions are. And then I've got the amount, and all of that then gets tabulated and summarized in this view. So for spending analysis, a couple things to note. The most important thing you can do is each month come in and take a look and see how did I do, and how did I do compared to prior months. And as you look at this, this will immediately reveal some areas. You can see your biggest areas of spending, and you might find that in 1 month there's something that really stands out, and it causes you to look a little closer and see, why was it that groceries was $2,035 over this time period? And you can filter down on groceries. You can see which month you really spent more, and you can dial into transactions just for groceries for that time period to check it out. That part of spending analysis is important because many of us don't evaluate our financial decisions after we make them. We spend the money, we pay the credit card, we never look back and think, was that the best use of those dollars? And financial planning is all about making smart trade-offs between spending now or spending later, or spending on one category versus another category. I want to spend really efficiently in certain areas of my finances so that I can spend really lavishly in areas that I like travel. And that's what I think budgeting does for you. It allows you to spend extravagantly in areas you really care about and cut the fat in other areas that don't matter as much to you. And this is why, as a financial advisor, I can't just build a budget for someone. It's because your budget reflects your own values, your own priorities, and ultimately you're the one spending the money. So I can give you tools, advice, guidance to create this habit, but ultimately you set the budget and it should reflect your values. So that's spending analysis. One other note before I get into building the zero-based budget is that while most of the transactions come in accurately, a really important behavior for you to do each month is to look back at your transactions and see, did everything come in properly? There are 2 areas that I recommend you check each month just to make sure everything was categorized, and those are transfers and the miscellaneous category. The reason why transfers is important is because transfers get excluded from the budget. They don't count as spending. And many things are transfers, like credit card payments. That's just moving money from my checking account to my Chase account. And you can see there's going to be a transaction of $2,200 in each spot. That makes perfect sense. We don't want to mess with those transfers, and we don't want them included in our budget. But other areas, the software doesn't know how to evaluate. So Venmo payments is a great example that me and many of my friends use, these peer-to-peer payment services. This actually is spending, so I want it to be included in my budget. How I include it in the budget is I just recategorize it. So for this one, I'm going to say it's dining out. And I've got some other Venmo payments in here, $42. We're going to say that one's personal care. And I can just go through and see all of my Venmos. Another important thing is these Venmo cash out transactions. This might be that you went out to dinner with somebody, it was $50 and you split the bill. And so as a result, you have a $50 expense in your budget, but you didn't spend the full $50 because you got reimbursed for $25. You want to make sure that this positive transaction comes in as part of your dining out. And so you are going to add that back in by recategorizing it appropriately. So each month, come in and do this. It'll just take a couple of minutes. Maybe you and your spouse do it together. Then the second category that you need to check out is miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is stuff that the software just didn't know. Maybe the engine hasn't picked it up, but you can come in here and you can quickly change these things. So I know that this is a Peloton, so I'm going to make this one gym expense. Is that what it is? We'll call it personal care. Might be health and fitness. The little gym is Sophia's gym, and I can come through and I can adjust this. Google might be a business expense. There won't be a ton of these, but you can recategorize them, and that'll make sure that each thing is in the right category. One final thing, if you really want to nerd out on the categories, there are a bunch of categories in here, but you may find that there are categories that are missing. If you want to change that, you can go into settings. And from the settings, you can add categories to your budget, which is a really helpful tool for you to be able to use. Okay, so now I've looked back at my spending, I've looked at the different categories, and now what I want to do is I want to build a zero-based budget. In an ideal zero-based budget, your net income each month would be pretty close to zero. You're not spending more than you're earning. And so that's what we want to do, is try to create that within your budget. How we're going to do that is under these action items, you can see I've got my spending for the last 3 months. And under action items, I can actually build a budget, and it shows me my last 3 months, the average for these different areas, what my income is, and then more importantly, what my expenses were. And then I get to take these numbers and I get to assign budgeted amounts for each of them. So I'm going to say $650 a month for auto and transport, $550 for dining out. This is an area for you to set a goal, a micro goal each month, or a target for what your spending will be. So you'll set these numbers in here. And what happens is, as I set these numbers, it is going to build into my budget those items that you saw above. And I would encourage you to look at some areas where you want to spend less and other areas where you'd say, man, I actually want to spend more on those. Put them in as categories. And then what happens is you can see this budget item, it shows up. And now I've got a target and I can quickly check in on my budget on my phone and see, am I spending more or am I spending less, both in this current month, as you see that full budget item come in, or looking back over terms like the 6 months and see how am I trending over time at fitting within the criteria that I've set. Now you can imagine why it's important to have proper categorization to do this. You want to make sure that all of your spending is being covered in each of the given months that you're budgeting for. What this is going to allow you to do is to be much more proactive in your spending decisions. So each month, what will you do? You'll come in, you'll look back at your spending and see, where did we spend in the last month, right? How did it go last month with us fitting into our budget? And you'll look at specific items that may have been out of whack, and you can take a look and see, dining out's an easy one to pick on. How do we do on a specific category like dining out last month? Talk through it. Then after you have done that, you're going to go from looking back at last month, that's the spending analysis, to looking at your current month and setting your budget. And you can adjust these numbers each month. Maybe it's a month where you know there's going to be more travel coming in. And so you would increase the travel budget, but those dollars need to come from somewhere. So you might decrease another number for that month in order to fit within the parameters of your budget. What this is going to do, as I said, is it's going to help you build a skill of coming in and seeing where your money's going. Don't be discouraged if on day one you're not a perfect budgeter. The point is to continuously improve and to get better at budgeting over time. One final note that I have for you as we think about the settings here is, if you would like help on adding to your budget, I'm happy to help you as your advisor. So I talked about adding categories. You can do that within the settings. I added personal care and taxes here, and these are all of the out-of-the-box categories. You might want to add something like, I love to golf, and so maybe I would add a golf expense category so I can get more granular and actually see what that one looks like for my budget. The second area is within security. If you add permissions and you say that you want to not hide your bank and credit card transactions from your advisor, I will be able to see those transactions, and I can help you with some categorization during our meetings to make sure that your budget is in good shape. Okay, last thing I want to talk about as we close out this video is, how do you take what you've learned, put it into practice, and build a solid habit? Really, there are 4 things I want you to do. The first one is set up your budget in RightCapital. Log in, set a first draft of your budget, and commit to 2 months of tracking your progress, of looking back at your spending and looking forward. How are you going to do this? Well, first of all, I recommend that you add the app to your phone so you can check your budget. You're checking dozens of apps on your phone any given day. It doesn't take that long to categorize your transactions. Just log in and do that maybe once a week, or you can include that in your monthly budget. Then mark your calendar for a monthly check-in. I recommend this be right after the first of the month. That allows you to look at all of your spending for the prior month and to set a plan for the coming month. Now, 2 things I want you to do. I want you to set a timer for this. Make it a 30 or a 45-minute thing where you're categorizing transactions, looking back and looking forward. This doesn't need to be this slog. It can happen really quickly through the technology. And then make it fun. So I did this really terrible Photoshop, but I've got my phone out, I got a glass of wine, and I got my stopwatch. And these 3 things are going to allow me to continue with this habit on an ongoing basis. Having the calendar marked, making it fun, pairing it with something that I really enjoy, like a good beverage, And making sure that it's short will allow me to do this on an ongoing basis. And if you need help, please reach out. I'd be happy to help you build this budget, because what I know is that having a solid budget and view of your cash flow is going to be one of the leading indicators of your ability to achieve your goals of being able to retire well, buy a home, send a child to college, to live well now while planning well for the future. Thank you so much for watching, and happy budgeting. I look forward to hearing about your progress.